Welcome to this edition of Valor Media. This is episode number 38 for October 26th, 2020, and I'm your host, Mark Appenzeller. Today I'd like to present an idea to you that will sound a bit like a cliche, and that's probably because it's a bit of a cliche. I titled today's episode, The Incredible Power of Thinking Big. And let's face it, that is a cliche. Thinking big, thinking outside of the box. We use expressions like that thousands of times and they completely lose their meaning. And I think that's a shame because the idea of thinking big isn't just a cliche. It really is something that's worth being intentional about, but a lot of times we don't do that for a variety of reasons. And today I want to encourage you as I share with you what I would like to, that thinking big is something that is very real. It should be very real. And if we're not thinking big, then maybe we're not thinking enough because it's one extreme or the other. If we don't think big, we will think small. And I think it's important as we move forward, particularly after all of the challenges of this year of 2020, we need to think big. Everything that we've faced this year, on a personal and a professional level, everything we've had to figure out has created in each one of us this organic knowledge base. We know things. We know how to do things. We understand things in a way that we didn't in October of 2019. So instead of just saying, well, that's neat, let's figure out what that can mean for us as we move forward. Now, for me, I am making big plans for 2021. Now, I've never been a fan of New Year's resolutions. And let's face it, most people seem to make New Year's resolutions on December 15th. I'm going to start walking every day. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to drink less coffee. And usually by about January 2nd, that's fallen by the wayside. People are making those New Year's resolutions smack dab in the middle of one of the most chaotic, frenzied, frenetic times of the year. And with all of that pressure and stress and things happening, it's easy to lose focus. We come out of that holiday season sometimes exhausted, sometimes a bit disoriented, sometimes burned out. And, particularly from the dietary aspect, we face the inevitable endless plates of leftover cookies that keep magically appearing. And so all those great things that we thought about in the middle of December are evaporated by the first week of January. So right now, I don't want to make New Year's resolutions, but what I want to do with a little bit more than 2 months remaining in the year 2020 is look at everything I've experienced this year and decide how can this help me next year and what should I be aiming for in 2021. Now, if you've listened to episodes of Valor Media that I've hosted, from time to time you will hear me talk about Walt Disney. He's somebody who has fascinated me my entire life. I really love to look at the management style that he had. He was really an interesting fellow, an incredibly creative guy, and he took a really different approach to getting things done, to figuring out how to do things. One of the fascinating ironies of Walt Disney is that he was somebody who didn't finish high school, but he wound up becoming a leader in so many different fields. He was a true innovator, and he left a legacy that decades later is global and multi-generational. But he did things almost invariably facing great risk. And for all of the enormous successes that he enjoyed, everything that he ever did trying to be a visionary found him confronting people who did not share that same vision. And what was very challenging was, although he had groundbreaking ideas, he was constantly facing total failure because others didn't understand what he was shooting for. That would particularly happen in the realm of financial backers. Now, fortunately for Walt, it wasn't just him. He was in partnership with his older brother, Roy. And it was a really good partnership because Walt was the creative genius and Roy was the financial and business one. But everything that Walt tried to do was endlessly met with criticism. People were constantly telling him he was crazy, he was foolish, he was going to fail. One of the first times this happened on a large scale was in 1937, when Walt Disney had his animators working on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, this was the very first time that anybody had ever attempted to make a feature-length animated film. And throughout the entire Hollywood community, Walt Disney was facing detractors on every side. They were calling it Disney's folly. They were predicting that it would be the downfall of the Disney studios. After all, who in their right mind would want to sit through a feature-length cartoon? Well, of course, Snow White debuted in 1937, and Walt proved all of those critics wrong. Now, a similar thing happened almost 20 years later in the early 1950s, when Walt was pursuing his greatest dream at that time, which was Disneyland. Now, prior to Disneyland, no one had ever built a theme park before, and Walt had very specific ideas about what he wanted to do. Now, the catalyst for it was when he used to take his daughters to Griffith Park in Los Angeles to ride the carousel, and he would sit there on a park bench eating peanuts, watching them ride. And he thought to himself, you know what, there should be some place where parents and children can have fun together. And that was what prompted him to create Disneyland. Well, even with all of the expertise of his brother Roy, it was still a challenge getting financial backing. And Walt was also someone who was very much governed by trying to do the best he could. He always aimed for being as perfect as possible. He wanted to exude high quality in anything that had the Disney name on it. So instead of taking shortcuts, instead of taking the cheap way out, he really thoroughly committed himself and his creative team to making this Disneyland be the best it possibly could be. Unfortunately, money started to run short because he refused to cut corners. He wanted everything to be high quality, first class. And in that commitment, the finances waned. So Walt Disney actually took a second mortgage out on his house to help fund Disneyland. I think that's an incredible concept. Can you picture any CEO today doing something like that? First of all, they probably wouldn't have to because the salaries are already so large. But to just think that somebody would risk their own house pursuing something like a Disneyland. And to me, what's intriguing is it really speaks to the fact that Walt Disney didn't just have great ideas, but he was committed to them. He actually invested himself in them. It wasn't just chasing some dream. It was saying, you know what? If I don't do this, it's never going to come to pass. And he really carried that throughout his entire life, throughout his entire creative career. When Walt Disney was in the hospital in December of 1966, hours before he passed away, his brother Roy was there with him. And Walt was putting together ideas for what he called the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. We know it today as Epcot. And although today Epcot is really more of a theme park, it was originally envisioned by Walt Disney as an actual city where people would live and work. And his idea was to bring together different facets of American industry and corporations so that Epcot could be a place where any new invention or technology could be field tested. He really was looking at the whole idea of urban planning and trying to eliminate some of the problems that had crept up in the mid-20th century with transportation and congestion in cities. He was trying to find more efficient and effective ways to let people work and interact and get around. And as he lay there in the hospital bed in the last hours of his life, he was looking up at the ceiling tiles in the room and using them as a grid. And he was pointing, telling his brother Roy, now, over here will be this and over there will be that. He was basically seeing a map of his Epcot on the ceiling of the hospital room. So he had a vision right up to his dying moments for something that he would never see come to pass. Now, I find that kind of thinking incredibly inspiring. And again, Walt Disney wasn't always dealing with people who could see that. He wasn't always facing things with people who really had that same buy-in that he did. A few years ago, I really felt like the Lord impressed something on my heart. It wasn't that I heard an audible voice, but I was really at a time of contemplating a lot of things in my life, and I felt like the Lord said to me, if you want to prosper in your life, align yourself with like-minded people. And that's something I have been intentionally trying to do now for years. I don't want to be working around people who are at odds with what God has put in my heart. I want to work with people who help draw that out of me, because I know that if I can do that, then hopefully I can also be a catalyst to draw out of their heart whatever God placed there. Now, I wanted to share all this today because this is the kind of mindset that I personally want to have as I move into 2021. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint." Now, casting off restraint can mean that you simply don't discipline yourself. You don't stay focused to press in, to press on, to move forward. You get discouraged. You stop yourself in your tracks. See, I want to have that same kind of determination that Walt Disney exemplified. If I feel that God has put something in my heart, it may look crazy to other people, and maybe it is. But if I believe in that vision, I want to invest myself in it. I want to do everything that I can. I want to leave no stone unturned as I move forward. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 2 says, "Enlarge the place of your tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of your habitation. Spare not, lengthen your cords, and strengthen your stakes." I love that last part, strengthen your stakes. We talk about having a stake in something. I want to strengthen my stakes. I want to decide, you know what? This isn't just a dream. This is something I'm committing to do. I want to move forward. And it doesn't matter if other people think I'm crazy, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. If I talk myself out of it, it will never work. You know, my entire life, one of the most wise voices I've listened to is my dad's. And one of the coolest things that my dad has ever said has stuck with me my entire life. I think it's so framing for what we're talking about today. And what my dad said was, the guy who isn't making any mistakes is the guy who isn't doing anything. And I think that's so brilliant. Yeah, if you don't want to make mistakes, if you don't want to embarrass yourself because you quote unquote fail, then don't do anything. But if you don't do anything, you'll never do anything. I want to at least try to do bigger things. I want to try to move forward. I don't want 2021 to be a rerun of what I did this year. I want to do new things. I want to believe that the best is yet to be. And I want to encourage you to try to do the same. You can have that mindset, well, what if it fails? Yeah, but what if it succeeds? You have to be committed to trying. I want to encourage you, don't talk yourself out of trying to do things because you're afraid of a few little bumps or scrapes along the way. It probably won't go perfectly. It will probably not run smoothly. You will make mistakes. You will have problems. You will have setbacks. You may have major setbacks, but that's part of the journey. When I visit my parents' house and I go down in their basement, I frequently see something there that kind of reminds me of what I'm talking about. In their little laundry area, hanging on the wall, there is this strange little contraption. It's about 2 by 3 feet. It's sort of a metal box painted blue. It's only a couple of inches thick. It has dials and gauges and some tubing on it. And down near the bottom, there is a pad of paper that has printed sheets with various little sections for things to be filled out. And on the top page, there are pencil scratches that are dated February of 1974. And what this crazy little gizmo is a weather forecasting kit that I got for Christmas as a kid all those years ago. Now, it had another component as well. There was a little wind spinner that was supposed to go out in your yard to help measure wind velocity and direction. But this unit that hangs on the basement wall at my parents' house, you were also supposed to put it outside because it was supposed to be measuring different things, barometric pressure and temperature. And I remember as a kid, for whatever reason, I was afraid if I put it outside, it would get rained on and the metal would rust and that would ruin it. and so we never put it outside. My older brother played around with it a little bit, and he's the one that made the notations on the tracking log. But because I was afraid that it might get a little rust or a little dirt on it, it never got used, and it's been hanging on that wall since 1974. It never served its purpose. It was a cool Christmas gift, and I never did anything with it because I was too afraid that something would happen to it. We do that so many times with our visions and our ideas and our dreams. And in your organization, your business, your vocation, whatever you put your time and talents toward, are you doing the same? In these last months of 2020, as you're preparing for next year, I want to encourage you, in whatever way is applicable for you, enlarge the place of your tent. Don't cast off restraint. Grab hold of that vision and don't let go of it. And I want to encourage you to do 3 important things for your vocation, your business, your organization as you prepare for 2021. I want you to write down on a piece of paper these 3 things. 1, something that in your organization you did right in 2020. There has to be something you did this year that was a success. And it's important to write those things down. It's important to put it on your refrigerator door. Hang it on your monitor of your PC. Put it in prominent places where every day you can remind yourself, oh yeah, we did do that right. Because you need to celebrate those things. It may in and of itself not be huge, but if you just say, oh, that was just something that happened, you're immediately negating the significance of it. Embrace everything that you accomplish. Everything that you achieve can be a stepping stone to the next thing. Now, the second thing I'd like for you to write down is something in your organization that has just never gotten taken care of. Something that you just sort of deal with. It's there all the time. Everybody complains about it. You kind of kick at it when you go by, but nobody knows what to do with it. Maybe it's something you don't deal with constantly, but every time it rears its ugly head, you realize, oh yeah, we never figured that out. Write it down, put that in a prominent place, and commit in 2021 to being a component of figuring out how to solve that problem. One of the most incredible things that you can do is to face head-on some long-standing issue that nobody ever deals with and get it permanently, finally resolved. It's so liberating to know that you don't have to deal with it anymore. And the third thing that I would like you to write down is something that you have never tried in your organization because it just seemed too big. Sometimes we do get scared. Sometimes we do back off. But I want to be like Walt Disney. He had a million chances to get scared and to just stop in his tracks, but he didn't. And sometimes he faced failures, and sometimes he made mistakes, but he kept pressing in. He kept the commitment to the vision that he had in his heart. We can do the same. God gives us a vision for what he wants our life to be. If we're following Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit will guide us. He will lead us into truth. He will lead us into wisdom. He will show us what we need to do, even when we make mistakes. So for you, for your organization, for your pursuits, start figuring out, what can I do in those 3 areas moving into 2021? I need to celebrate what was done right this year. I need to figure out how to address what never gets addressed. And I need to figure out what to reach for that always looked a little too big. If you can put those 3 things before you as resolutions, I really believe you can make incredible progress. And we want to help you do that. At Valor Media, we really try to take everything that we have learned at the Valor Crisis and Training Center, the knowledge base that we have built up over the years, and we want to be able to share that with others because we want other organizations and agencies and businesses to thrive and to succeed. We want to be able to share what we learned, sometimes by making mistakes ourselves. We're not perfect, but we're learning more all the time. And we are committed to trying to help others solve problems in their organizations that they don't know what to do about. If you'd like to find out how we could help your organization reach its goals for 2021, you can reach out to us at info@valorxl.com. You can also visit our website, www.valorxl.com, or find us on Facebook at Valor XL. I also encourage you to get a deeper perspective of the overall vision of Valor Ministries by visiting us on Facebook at Valor Ministries or on our website, www.thevalorcenter.org. We want this podcast to be relevant and beneficial for you. So if you have questions or comments about anything we've talked about, or if you have suggestions for topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, you can reach out to us at media@thevalorcenter.org. And if Valor Media is a blessing and an encouragement to you, would you consider financially supporting us so that we can continue to bring you this content week after week? If so, you can make your tax-deductible contribution securely online by going to www.thevalorcenter.org/donate, or you can send a check or money order to Valor Ministries, 324 East Antietam Street, Suite 104, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740. Thanks again for joining me today. I invite you to come back next week and join us for another installment of Valor Media, when your host will be Lori Riston. And until then, remember this: you were made to thrive.